I'd like to say a little bit about the role of women in society. Now, if you believe the movies, it seems an awful lot like women have no effect in history except when they leave a female role and put on men's clothing and pick up a sword and run out and act like a man. That is total bull. It's completely false. There have been an enormous a number of women throughout history who have had a tremendous effect on history without ever leaving a feminine role. You, you don't need to deny the role that you have in society to have an effect on the world. For example, Katerina von Bora. Yes, I know, you don't know who she was. Katerina von Bora was the wife of Martin Luther. And she had a tremendously interesting story. It's fascinating. I highly suggest you look her up and just read it because it's fascinating. She was an amazing person. And she married Martin Luther because she wouldn't marry anyone else. And he said, okay, if you want to. And it wound up being the best decision he ever made because she and he together were a much bigger thing than either of them was apart. And that is why monogamy works, because you get two different people together, and I'm digressing. I'm sorry. So, she never left the role of a woman as it existed in her society, but she had a tremendous effect on the Protestant Reformation and on the course of history, on the entire world. And this is no lone event. This is not unique. This has happened over and over and over throughout history. Empress Matilda of England, she had an enormous effect on the history of England and most of Europe. And she never stopped being a woman. She never put on armor or went and carried a sword into battle. And she never threw over social conventions. And the War of the Roses, that was a major deal, and many women had a great part to play in it. Not by going out and pitching into battle, but by taking part in the war in feminine roles. Noble women and queens, in fact, took part in the war. And they did what women were expected to do in that society. And by working in the roles that women had in that society, they had a tremendous part to play in the course of the war and its eventual results. There are so many others. Those are just the ones whose names I can remember. I have a terrible memory for names. The Valois. During the French Wars of Religion, the women in the Valois family, it was the French royal family at the time, they had a great effect on the course of history. The Queen Mother, I can't remember her name now. If you asked me like 3 minutes ago, I maybe could have remembered, but now I can't. She ran the country. She ran the government. Her 3 sons were kings. Her husband was a king, and she ran the country without ever acting like a man. Um, so, no. And yet, if you watch movies, you see the only women having any watch historical movies. The only women having any effect on anything are the ones who put on armor and go out and act like men, and that is wrong. And it seems to me like there is at least a certain bias among some people that trying to impart this bias into people, into women in particular, that they cannot have any effect in the world in an actual woman's role in society. There seem to be, to me at least, some people trying to convince women that the only way they can have any effect on the world is by rejecting the role of a woman in society and acting like and taking on a male role in society by doing things that traditionally men do. Now, if a woman decides on her own that she would rather take on jobs and that are traditionally for men to do, if a woman decides to do that on her own, that's no problem. Fine, whatever. Do what makes you happy. Work in jobs that you are good at. But this concept, this almost brainwashing that a woman is incapable of having an effect on the world, on history, on events around her in a woman's role is wrong. Now, depending on events happening, then yes, people of one sex or another might have a stronger role, a more effective part to play. For example, historically in plagues, women have had a greater part in treating people stricken by plagues, and in wars, men have generally had a greater part to play in how wars play out. In general, not because as a general rule, there are more men involved in wars. Like I said before, there have been many women have had great effect on many wars without entering into a male role. Kind of rambling. Sorry about that. I'll stop here because, well, I'm uncomfortable rambling. And I do it a lot because my thoughts tend to be rather disorganized like now. I'd have to digress a lot like I'm doing now. So thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy this. And by all means, please look this up. There are really many incredible women in society who have had great effect in history, who have had a great effect on the world, even as it is today. And yet they are hardly remembered because they played a woman's role in society. And that's wrong. These women should be remembered. And that's it. Thank you.